What if firemen burned down houses instead of saving them? What if no one read books anymore? What would happen to them? Why should we read? What is it in books? Hi, welcome, I'm Isabel, and today we're going to be digesting Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451 was written by Ray Bradbury in 1953. The title refers to the temperature that book paper will catch fire. So, what's this book about? So, at the beginning, we meet Guy Montag. Just as his name suggests, he's a regular guy, a regular Joe, nothing special in him. And he happens to be a fireman. He gradually encounters events and people that make him wondering if his line of work is correct at all. Why? Oh, because firemen start fires? Yes, they burn books, houses, and sometimes people. In this futuristic view of the United States, books are a signal of madness. No one has read one in decades. No one. They all have been burned a long time ago. And apparently no one misses them until Montag does. I don't really know how to tackle this book without giving spoilers or making as a given that you know what this book is about. As far as I know, if you grew up in the United States, this is a required reading. I think around grade 8. I didn't study in the United States until college, but I'm gonna try to be vague in details in case you still want to read it, but I am gonna talk about the book and some aspects and themes and arcs that I thought it was interesting to talk about. So I'm sorry if this has too many spoilers. I really don't know where to put the spoilers alert. So the historical period. Dealing with a classic of literature, but it's kind of like contemporary and modern-esque. You really need to wonder what the historical period is, especially for a dystopian novel. You might wonder why, if you said this is set in a futuristic version of the United States, but you still need to know, because the thing with fiction, and with fiction that is like this, is that the author is writing from the past. So if this book was written during the 1950s and this author was growing up around the 1920s and that period of time in the United States, this is a problematic period. You have the 20s with wealth and opulence and this winning stake, and then you have the Great Depression, and then you have war, and then Cold War, and technology, and American values being rewritten a little bit, and just people wondering where the country is going to go. So you first need to understand the past to understand why is this the future that Bradbury kind of sees. The 1950s were already marked by new technology, coming to displace institutions that have already been there, of all kinds. The radio was being displaced by TVs, big works of literature were included in magazines and summarized, digested with the almost all now extinct Reader's Digest, because no one needs that anymore when you can look at Wikipedia or Sparks Notes. And with these magazines, you didn't have just the summarized version. It was already pre-packaged deal of opinions that were already pre-made for you. The Cold War and the always present threat of deadly technological warfare. Therefore, with that context in mind, we can move on to what's the genre of this book. Like, how can I say what this fits in with? So you could say that this is a dystopic fiction novel. In recent years, we have seen a lot of this type of works being taken to movies or TV shows, kind of like The 100, The Hunger Games, Divergent series, you name it, right? After reading the novel Darkness at Noon from the 1940s by Arthur Koestler, I'm probably mispronouncing his name, I'm sorry, which is a novel about the Moscow show trials and Stalin's dictatorship, Bradbury created Fahrenheit 451 as a prime example of dystopian fiction, but also what we know as speculative fiction. Depending on the source, you might see speculative fiction being different as dystopian fiction, but a lot of literary critics differentiate them by seeing which one is based on things that have actually happened in the past and were inspired by it. But while I was attending Berkeley, I got the opportunity to go to one of Margaret Atwood's conference about The Handmaid's Tale. And I remember Margaret Atwood saying that while writing her fictional novels and dystopian novels, she never went too far away from humanity. And I'm just paraphrasing, of course. But she said that everything in her novels have happened before, thousands of years before, or 20 years before, or a week before. She always kept humanity under the microscope and was looking to things that have already happened and how dangerous would be for them to resurface with the new technologies and the new mindsets that we have now. And then she just sets them up in the future or in the past, but always keeping in mind that those things actually happen. Books were burned historically. They have, and people have been burned historically. So it's not too far-fetched for it to be not only speculative, but also historical in some ways or another. So I don't make a big difference between dystopic fiction and speculative fiction. A lot of authors and literary critics don't do, and I personally don't either. So moving on, we also have the third person narration. And this could be tricky if you want to know very quickly how we got to this society that Montag lives in. But the third person narration is centered into Montag's mindset, so it can be a little bit limited, but we also are always with our heroes. Oh yeah, the organization of the novel, 3 chapters and everything. I thought it was very striking, very like on the nose, the organization of the chapters. First, Aristotle preconceived storytelling as having 3 parts. You have the beginning, the middle point, the end. It's called the 3-act structure. You have the setup, the confrontation, the resolution. And each is separated by a beat. A beat is what sends the story to different points. So it's like, you wake up early to go to work, right? You go in your car and you start driving until you see that one of the roads is being repaired. I don't know, I don't drive. So you see that one of the roads is being repaired and you need to take a different route that you're not used to it. Maybe you're not taking the freeway, you're taking, I don't know, you're going through a residential area. And because of it, you're late. The beat is that you couldn't take the road that you planned on taking. And everyone has plans and lines where they want to go. This character is going to work every day. That's his straight line. It's already pre-made. He follows it without thinking a lot about it. But because of this incident, you have this beat. Instead of going like this, it goes like this. So those beats are connected by cause and effect logic. And that's how a plot is constructed in a credible way. So whatever, that's how you make a plot. I'm totally going away from what I wanted to say. The cataclysm in Montag's story is Clarice and the constant questions that she is always asking him. For example, are you happy? Are you happy is a very difficult question for everyone, but he had never wondered if he was happy. And that's a beat point. He's going in a straight line, something happens. And then there's the death of the old woman. Another beat point and success. And that's how it goes. The cataclysms are usually a call of action in the typical hero's journey that make him go out of his line and makes him take an active role around the people. So we have our 3 chapters. We already discussed that we have a 3-act story. Very easy to make. It's very on the nose. You have 3 chapters. So let's think about the names of the chapters, shall we? We have chapter 1, The Heart of the Salamander. We have chapter 2, The Sieve in the Sand. And we have chapter 3, Burning Bright. Just by the title of the chapter, you have the heart, salamander. You have sieve, sand. Sieve and sand also have alliteration within them, so they have SS. Like, so what? You have HSBB, like a sh, like a sound. Also, each chapter is marked by a theme. So in the hearth and the salamander, you have the spark of curiosity, like when you're starting a fire and there's a spark. And then you have the sieve and the sand, which is marked by ignorance. And we really get to understand the ignorance that is prevalent in everyone, not just people. Montag doesn't get to not have ignorance. He's a product of the society that he lives in, after all. Burning Bright is not 2 things again. The hearth and the salamander, the sieve and the sand. No, you have Burning Bright, BB. And when you read Burning Bright as a title of a chapter, your mind is supposed to go to William Blake, because this is a reference to his poem, The Tiger. The Tiger is part of Blake's works of Songs of Innocence and Experience from 1793. So like, why do I care about this poem that is referenced in a book that makes a lot of reference to literature? Yeah, the sun is coming up. The Tiger. I'm just gonna read you a little bit of The Tiger. I'm gonna leave a link down below where you can read it if you want. Okay, The Tiger also has fire and heat allegories within it. And it makes a lot of reference to sounds, just as the titles, the H, the S, the S, the B. It's something that Blake does as well. Okay, I'm just gonna read you the last 2 stanzas, okay? And starts. When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? So these are the last stanzas. So why am I reading this to you? In these last 2 stanzas, it's clear that Blake is thinking about the creator of things, okay? And at the same time, the poem recreates the dynamics of 2, as I said before, as the chapters mark. And these dynamics are ever present within Montauk until the last chapter. He's torn between the purity of fire and what it represents to him, but also the destructions within the fire. You have the freedom of literature, but you also have the dangerousness of arguments. Blake wonders, did he who make the lamb make thee? Remember, we're thinking about a tiger. So you have a tiger and a lamb. Purity, dangerousness. And fire embodies both. At the same time, humanity needs to consider that if you believe in a God, he created symmetry and harmony while also creating dangerousness and chaos. And he seems to think that all of them needs to coexist. And if you do believe again in God, there is this belief that God gives you free will. But in Fahrenheit 451, free will has been extracted out of the people. And they do think that they live like they want to, but now they don't know anything better. So it's very interesting that the title of the 3rd chapter is this poem in particular. It's great because all these literary references that Bradbury includes, none of their characters would understand it because all books have been burned. So imagine living in a world with songs of innocence and experience doesn't exist anymore. The sun is burning bright. So where was I? Yes, fire. Fire! Burning bright like the sun. I'm gonna go over the major themes, motifs, and just figures that I found interesting on this book. There's plenty. This is not all of it, but I just thought these were very, interesting for conversation. So we have fire. After all, the book starts as, it was a pleasure to burn. And pleasures are always described with fireworks, like a burning passion, a burning pleasure. And it is a pleasure for Montauk and for every other person. Because fire for the fireman and just mankind in this novel is clean, it's pure, and it makes them free. Fire and heat are used to cleanse any ferociousness that might cause disagreements, diversity, and problems. I mean, fire itself reminds us of Prometheus. If you're familiar with Prometheus myth, you know that he is the one who stole the fire from the gods. And by this action, that fire is the one that equates gods and mankind. Well, they're not on the same level, but kind of lift humanity up. So fire is a very interesting element throughout history for humans and in literature. Fire also, like I mentioned in the quick comment about the poem, in Blake's poem, fire is the embodiment of duality. Like Blake that is talking about the lamb and the tiger, fire represents the duality of nature in one element. It can be beautiful and free, but it could also kill and destroy everything around us. It can keep us warm during the winter and cook food and everything good that fire serves us for. But it can also pretty much go out of our control and destroy everything, or be under our control and destroy everything. The other thing we have is speed. Similar to fire, speed is used more discreetly in this novel, if you might say, because everything is quick. War is expressed and entertainment is right there on the wall, and every wall. Cars go extremely fast, and so much that the billboards are humongously long, so people can read them because they're going too fast. Montauk himself is almost run over like twice by people that just enjoy running people over. Like, they're just going too fast. It's like speed gives them this free pass ticket to kill. Just like fire and being a fireman gives Montauk and his crew the right to burn people because they have books, It's like a special license that you have. It also mentions that Montag's wife likes likes killing animals with her car. That's just how her way to release steam. And also, like, the expression release steam is like saying that there's something burning inside you and you have smoke coming out of you and you need to do an activity to release that. So like everyone has a little fire within them. And you have there your connection about fire and steam. Also within Speed, Montag's chase is pretty quickly over. And I think it's because the police knows. Like right now, no one can focus for more than the length of a TikTok video. So imagine in this world how much attention people have. Like none of it. That's why they need to sacrifice someone else to act like he's Montag and kill him and give a quick ending to that whole chase and end Montag right there. As everything needs to be quick, and quick. And more importantly, Clarice, the first person that makes him wonder if he's happy, gets killed by a speeding car. Which is like the spark of curiosity gets killed by speed with fire. The interconnection of speed and fire. Contrary to slowing down. That it was what she preached and taught Montag. Because I can only imagine that in this society that we're talking about, it is very dangerous to slow down, because if you slow down this quick path that you're going through, you might wonder why are you in that path at all, and that's dangerous for social order. Talking about Clarice, it is interesting that she and the old woman die, and these two females are the ones that spark Montag's interest, books and literature. It's not the first time that the symbol of a woman is used as a way to wake up the man. If you want to go to biblical times, you have Eve, who awakes Adam's curiosity, and by her awaking Adam's curiosity is that they both eat from the forbidden tree and the forbidden fruit. And that's how and in the Catholic frame, that's why we're doomed, because of the first woman who sinned. We also have this women in Fahrenheit 451 that might be sinners in this social order when they dare to slow down. In the example of Clarice, and she dares to wonder things, just as Eve does. Why can't we eat from the forbidden fruit? In this biblical mindset, if you're trying to make the comparison, the why can't we do this, why is it forbidden, is the same thing as Clarice wonders. Why can't we slow down? Why do we have to drive so fast? Why do we have to walk so fast? Why can't we just look at the roses? Why can't we be happy? Why can't we even wonder why we're not happy? And then the old woman represents the action, the eating from the forbidden fruit. I feel so bad that I'm calling her the old woman. It's just that we don't have a name for her, I think. Or I don't remember it, so I feel bad that I call her old, but whatever. The old woman. The woman, the unnamed woman, is this action. Eating the forbidden fruit, having the books, dying with them, accepting her sin, and accepting that her sin in this society, and going with her penitence. Like, she doesn't repent, so she dies. And this too contrasts with Montag's wife. What's her name? Mildred, who is the embodiment of society, and they're both practically strangers living in the same house. They barely even remember how they met. But these two other women are almost more important to Montag than his own wife. I don't know, because they're Eve. I don't know what to make out of this, because I know that feminist theory will go after me. But we also have Fraser, that is the contrast to Montag. You have Fraser, that is the professor. You have Montag, and then you have the captain. And they both know more than Montag. Like, even when the captain is this figure of burning books and like ignorant, he's not. He does have read the books and he has acknowledged that Montag doesn't, but he chooses to keep with the social order because he thinks that's the right thing. And then you have the professor who has the knowledge and he doesn't think that's the right thing to do, but he's not rebelling. He's hiding away. He's not brave enough to fight. So I think all of these characters are foils for each other. And now that I mentioned Mildred, I don't want to be too harsh on her, but it's difficult. In the topic of emotions, we see that she cannot deal with her own emotions, and she constantly bottles them up. I mean, in the first few pages, we know that she tried to commit suicide, but then she tried to act like it didn't happen, or she doesn't remember that it happened, so Montag doesn't even mention it. And it is implied that in this society, that's a normal thing, I guess, almost. And like, she has this profile of someone who's trying not to be in her own mind a lot. You know what I mean? Like, she's constantly watching the family, which are the screens and the entertainment and the people in the screens. She even experienced anxiety if Montag turns the volume down or he dares to turn it off. Like, she's like, I can't deal with me right now. Like, she's about to burst. She even goes to sleep with her ear shields, like her, well, it's like Bradbury's prediction of AirPods. And she even goes to sleep with them and she drives with them all the time. She's never on her own with her own thoughts. And for Montag, who is beginning to have his own thoughts, it's pretty obvious that they're strangers in the same house. Ironically, I think that she is the result of book burning in the sake of happiness. In every war, in every despicable act that humanity has made, they have looked for reasons why it was the right thing to do. Like, everyone does that. You try to convince yourself so you can live with yourself. So that's what they do. As the captain says in page 58, if you don't want a man unhappy politically, don't give him two sides to a question to worry him. Give him one. Better yet, give him none. And that might be harsh, but he's kind of right, okay? Like, they burn everything that make people disagree. And like, when you have a marriage, even a marriage, when you have a partner that you live with and you're romantically involved, you have all these aspects that is gonna interrupt the peaceful happiness that you're striving for. You know, you have money issues and you have problems with how to raise your kids, and then you have just different worldviews, and all of those things are gonna start disagreement and arguments. But at the same time, if you delete every single aspect that is different from your partner, it's gonna be very boring, because you're basically just gonna agree with everything. Who wants that? Like, the reason why we seek other people is to have conversations and different points of view and just have different days. Even if nothing happens in a day, at least you talk to someone who is a Republican and you're a Democrat, and you're talking about things that you disagree with. But at the same time, you're both looking for the same end. You both want, or typically in politics, you both want the better outcome for your country or for problems that you might have collectively. But burning everything that sparks a conversation and disagreement in the sake of happiness is because thinking sparks feelings of unhappiness. If you start thinking about songs of innocence and experience, if you start thinking about like the Bible, when you read the Genesis, as I mentioned, Adam and Eve, if you start thinking about that, you might feel, that you were expelled from paradise. You might feel bad. You might feel that you need to work hard to kind of be virtuous again, and if you believe in it, to go to heaven. Or you might believe, or if you may take another approach, you might sympathize with Adam and blame Eve, and you might turn against women a little bit because religion is pretty much misogynist anyways. But the other way around, you might turn against everyone that blames Eve, and like a million of things that you can start thinking about that might spark unhappiness within you. Arguing sparks difference and individualism. And individualism is extremely dangerous for society, or more like individualism is as dangerous for those who want to control society, because instead of having to control one type of person, you have to control thousands of them, and you have to convince thousands of them. So as everyone is the same and you have them on your side, you have everyone. Like, it's that simple. You have everyone. So this is how we land in censorship. And I was trying to avoid this topic. Censorship is the famous word that is attached to this book in every review and every conversation about it. However, it is not as easy. You can't just blame the government, the firemen, or the people. You can't just point at one. The lack of individualism in Montag's society is no one else to blame than society itself. As Professor Fraser reminds Montag in page 83, he tells Montag, remember, the firemen are rarely necessary. The public itself stopped reading of its own accord. It's there. We stop reading. I mean, of course, the disinterest in creating critical thinkers and just educating yourself as much as you can is extremely beneficial to mind controlling and numbness, and the numbness that government needs of the American people. But we were the ones that give them permission. We were the ones that give them the idea. They didn't burn anything that people were using. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're little and you have a lot of toys, and your mom, because she doesn't want to live with a house full of toys, she takes a few of them away. The ones that you don't use that much, the ones that you just have in a corner and you don't play with them anymore because you have a shiny new thing. And it's like getting mad because your mom took them away and gave them away to another kid or throw them in the trash. You shouldn't do that though. The thing is, when you realize that they're gone, you usually don't care anymore, because you weren't that attached to them in the first place, because if you were, you would have been using them. This is the same thing with the books. People weren't using them. They didn't care about Shakespeare and William Blake, so they didn't make a big fuss about it. But the problem starts with, but it got to a point when you didn't have the choice anymore, when you didn't know what toys were anymore. In this example, it was totally eradicated. So you don't have the option anymore to decide if you want to play with a toy. It's kind of the same thing. As a side note, as I said in my July wrap-up video, Fahrenheit 451 keeps getting banned, even in the 2000s. In 2018, some Florida parents found that the word bastard and just the vulgarity in things were just too much for their kids, as if they don't have access to internet and have read and heard worse things. But what is more problematic for me, what is more problematic and scary, is that if parents are trying to ban this book in 2018, it might be because Bradbury had some of right, some of true in his portrayal of where the American public was going towards. And are we getting there? Are we turning into Montag and Mildred? And maybe are some people who are pushing back a little bit, as you might say. Probably the people with book channels and YouTube. But if we are moving collectively towards that direction, we need to take a decision. And it's a tough one. It is between knowledge and ignorance, and it's not as easy as it sounds. Why? Professor Fraser tells Montag in page 79. Page 79 is just a great page, honestly. But he tells them, after explaining what everything that humanity went through with literature. So now, do you see why books are hated and feared? They show the pores in the face of life. The comfortable people want only wax moon faces, poreless, hairless expression. And using this analogy of faces, and is anyone picking pores for life? Because this porosity in books, this indentations in literature, is where you can fill with arguments and with loopholes and with difference in opinion. And those pores in life mean critical thinking. They mean arguments. They mean constant uncomfortability. Because we will always have a new thing to think about without anyone else digesting it for us. It would just be me digesting my things in my YouTube channel. But it is a tough question. It is a tough decision. And the majority of people will, of course, pick to not struggle than struggle. For a book lover, it's very easy to judge the people in this book. Like, why? How dare them? How does this happen? But it is human nature to pick being comfortable other than not being comfortable. So in Fahrenheit 451, people chose condensation and comfort. And in the aspect of condensation, Fraser claimed in page 71, he very proudly said, "I don't talk things, sir. I talk the meaning of things. I sit here and I know I'm alive." And for society that chose condensation, which leads to extermination of literature, talking the meaning of things is the most rebellious thing that you can do. More importantly, him saying that this action is the source of the feeling of aliveness is amazing. Because we need to remember, aliveness is not connected to the plastic happiness that they experience. In this book, on the contrary, they're usually disconnected into a numb state. And this disconnection is the most salient aspect of everyone that we can read and know about in this. Like Montag, in a moment of hyper awareness, reveals that people have been in like 2 nuclear wars since 2022 almost, and that people are poor around the world, but Americans don't care because we're well fed and we are well entertained. So it's this question. So it's like if these people are so comfortable that they're empty shells of people. They don't have anything within them anymore. And it's kind of like when an example of it is something that I experience all the time. When it's late at night and I want to read, I lay in my bed. But if I'm too comfortable in my bed, I'm gonna fall asleep and I'm not gonna read any. So you always have to need to be a little bit uncomfortable if you want to push your brain to do something that is a little bit less pleasant. Even when I completely enjoy the act of reading, I enjoy more sleeping. It is a fact, and I'm not gonna act like I'm like a super person. So if I make everything extremely comfortable, I'm gonna fall asleep. But if I sit on a chair, on a couch, or just in a different angle in my bed when I'm not laying down and I'm sitting down and the lights are on, that's gonna create a little bit of discomfort that is gonna keep my brain going. But these people don't have that amount of discomfort. Everything has been smooth, no pores, nothing. And in those pores, and as I said, in those pores, that's where the arguments lay inside, but it's also where curiosity lives. And if you smooth the surface, there's no curiosity anymore. What is mankind without curiosity? And to conclude this kind of like analysis that goes everywhere, remember how I said that Montauk's arc is very interesting, but because you can analyze it in the Aristotelian three-act structure that I mentioned before, and you can also analyze it with the hero's journey and whatever framework that you like using. I want to propose a different one, and I don't know why I woke up very biblical today as I propose Adam and Eve's comparison and the Genesis. Now I'm going to propose a different one, and let's see some of the Bible echoes in the life of Christ in the last chapter. So we have the theme of sacrifice. And we have the ultimate sacrifice, that is Montauk killing his own personality, or whatever he had of a personality. Even before the chase, Montauk goes out of his way to find favor, gets his stuff and his clothes, and he strips himself of his old identity of his Montauk clothes, and he goes into the water. Like baptism, he takes away Montauk and leaves him behind. He goes into the water, and when he resurfaces, he's a new man. But the Calvary that he endured before that moment is a moment of transformation. He gets betrayed by his own Judas, his wife, Mildred. Even when we know that they're not best friends or in love or anything, it still feels like a betrayal because she is his wife. And we know that she dies in the nuclear bomb at the end. But if Montauk is Jesus, or a Jesus-esque figure, you have Professor Favor as a disciple, or one of those people that helped Jesus. He gives Montauk all his support and a plan, and they plan to eventually meet afterward. If you follow this analogy of Montauk dying and then being reborn in the baptism water and then appearing as a new man, the plan that he has with Professor Favor implies that they are going to meet in an afterlife, or just another place that is not this city that is killing Montauk, or this pushing him into killing himself. The death of Montauk also implies the rebirth that I mentioned. Montauk the fireman dies for humanity's sin, something that he doesn't have anything to do with because people were already banning books. They were already burning them. He was just born and got into a job. But he does awake from this numbness and he is reborn as a man of letters. Something that I found interesting is that the rebirth of Montauk implies that he has no individuality. That is something that I would have expected, but I guess this is why I see it more as a sacrifice. He sacrificed himself and the opportunity of being an individual, and he compromises for everyone else's sin and for other people's well-being, and then he absorbs literature. He becomes literature. If he was an empty shell before, now he's a shelf for literature. So going to the ending of this video, I'm gonna give you my favorite quote. It's page 48, and Montauk says, "There must be something in books, things we can't imagine. To make a woman stay in a burning house, there must be something there. You don't stay for nothing. There must be something in books." That question for me is like the question. What is it in books? Why should we read? As I said in my previous video, I just want you to consume literature and culture in any way. I'm not even going to act as puristic as Bradbury and say that a video, audiobook, ebook, a movie is less than a book. Because as Professor Favor tells him, that magic is not only available to you in books. You need to look for porosity. You need to look for pores in anything that you can find. And how can you do it? If you watch a movie, don't just watch it. Watch it and afterwards think. Simple questions. Did I like it? Did I not like it? Why? Those 3 questions. What did you like? I like the protagonist. Why did you like the protagonist? What does he represent? Was this an action movie? You like the action, you like the explosions. Why? Your life is dull. Why is your life dull?
Why do you need to watch explosions and people killing each other for entertainment? Why do you think that's entertaining? Do you think that killing someone else is okay in a movie, or do you think it's okay in real life? Is it okay if it's self-defense or if you're defending someone weaker than you? Was there any other option for them not to kill each other? Could they have talked? Could they have compromised?
Because if you constantly try to make things smooth, even when they're not, you're gonna lose why are they there. And it's gonna happen what eventually happened in this book. Creators and the government and the firemen eventually figured out that no one was gonna notice if there were no pores included anymore. So if we stop wanting quality, and if we stop expecting it, and if we stop digesting it, it's gonna stop being there. They're gonna stop making it. So if you ask me, what should I get? So what should I get from this stupid book and this stupid video? Go read a book, go watch a movie, but don't just read it, don't just watch it, don't just listen to that podcast. Think about it. Professor Favorite said it best. We're finding that magic is not just finding it. Number 1, you need quality of information. And number 2, you need leisure to digest it. And number 3, you need to have the bravery to live with number 1 and number 2 and do something. As I say before, and as I think I'm gonna keep saying forever, read. Surround yourself with wonder and surround yourself with literature and pores. Live inside the pores. Digest. Think. It's not as easy as it sounds, but it's far more rewarding. Don't just talk about things, talk about the meaning of things. So that's all for me. Thank you for watching my video. I'm gonna give you a link if you want to find me in any other part of the internet. Thank you for watching my video, and I'm so sorry for the light changing and the wardrobe changes, but I hope you like it. Keep reading. Bye!